Huh? Oh, there we are. Good. Good morning. It's too loud. But anyway, good to see everybody this morning. I'm going to start in a strange place. I know we're dealing with Samson, and you may think I'm out of my mind, but I want to start with Habakkuk. And I've got a reason for it. And if you just hold on, you'll understand in just a minute. In Habakkuk chapter 1, the prophet says, the burden which the prophet Habakkuk saw, O Lord, how long shall I cry, and you will not hear? Even cry out to you violence, and you will not save. Why do you show me iniquity and cause me to see trouble? For plundering and violence are before me. There's strife and contention arises. Therefore, the law is powerless, and justice never goes forth. For the wicked surround the righteous, therefore perverse judgment proceeds. Then the Lord answers, look among the nations and watch. Be utterly astounded, for I will work a work in your days which you would not believe, though it were told you. Now, I'm not going to read the rest of the book. It's 3 chapters long, and we're going to focus on of course, Samson. But what I want us to see here is the interesting statement. I'm going to do something that you wouldn't believe even if it was told you. Last week, as we were looking at Samson, I think we were somewhat incredulous about some of the things that he did and the nature of the man. As we understand it from Scripture, he had his struggles. But what I want us to remember, especially from that book of Habakkuk, is that God then goes on and tells the prophet, I'm going to use the Babylonians to punish my people. And that was an astounding thought, because the Babylonians were wicked people. I mean, they were terribly wicked. They'd done awful things to the nations around them, and that even included, of course, they were going to do some awful things to the people of God. Habakkuk was astounded because he went on to say, basically, this put in my words, they're worse than we are. They're more wicked than we are. And I know you don't tolerate sin, you don't tolerate evil, so I don't understand. I mean, that'd be putting in my terminology. I'm going to sit up here and wait and see what kind of answer you give me. Well, God then proceeded to tell him, well, look, I'm going to use the Babylonians, but there's a day coming when I'm going to deal with the Babylonians too. They're going to be punished for their iniquity. Their sin's going to find them out. We putting that in my terms. That's what he says. Well, here we come with this fella Samson. I'm not going to defend everything that Samson did. It may be when we get to heaven, we get a thoroughgoing explanation. We all say, oh, well, okay, I understand now. I don't know. But I mean, looking at it just text, what the text gives us, he had his struggles. And particularly, he struggled with apparently temptation in regard to women. And we're going to talk about that more as we go on through this lesson today. I'm going to warn you in advance that as I was looking through my notes here, I realized that my typist messed up twice in this, and I will talk to him tomorrow about his typing. So if you want to make yours look good or be correct at least, then you can, if you'll listen to me, I'll straighten it out. So let's start chapter 16, verse 1 of the book of Judges. Now Samson went to Gaza and saw a harlot there and went into her. Now I want to pause a minute. Gaza is a Philistine-dominated city. It's been that way for years. And it's going to be that way even on into the future as far as this point in time where the book is. And so we know he's still in the area where he's dealing with the Philistines, and we want to remember that. So verse 2, when the Gazites were told, Samson has come here, They surrounded the place and lay in wait for him all night at the gate of the city. They were quiet all night, saying, in the morning, when it is day or daylight, we will kill him. And Samson lay low till midnight. Then he arose at midnight, took hold of the doors of the gate of the city, and the two gateposts, pulled them up, bar and all, put them on his shoulders, and carried them to the top of the hill that faces Hebron. Okay, so Philistine city, Samson's there. Samson's already killed, 1,000 Philistines, not counting the 30 that he killed to get their change of clothing. So over 1,000 Philistines have been killed by Samson. He's come to the city. Now, by the way, notice this about this harlot that he goes into. Nowhere in the text does it say this was of God. Now, when you're talking about the woman that he married earlier, it does say his parents didn't know that this was of God. It says that. But here, no mention of God's role in this. Now, could God have been behind it and the Spirit directed him? Well, it's possible that that was the case. But my inclination is to think that this is exactly what we looked at as we started the class, that this is a case like the book of Habakkuk, where Samson's doing something that God really doesn't approve of, but God's going to use it for his purposes anyway. That's my suspicion in regard to it, but I couldn't prove it if I was forced to. So they lie in wait for him, and they're waiting for daybreak. Samson doesn't wait for daybreak. About midnight, he picks up. Now think about this now. We're talking about a city. We're talking about the gates of a city. My house is not a city. But I do have a wooden fence around it. And you know, most of these subdivision houses, wooden fence, have a gate that's wide enough to get a riding mower through. In my case, that's irrelevant. I don't have a riding mower. I've got a push-by-self mower. But at any rate, if I try to imagine, you know how heavy is one side, just one side of that gate? I can tell you this, I don't think I would pick it up by myself. Or if I did, I wouldn't move it far. I'd probably, move it, kind of walk it, what do they call that, elephant walking it or whatever, making it move along till I got it to go where I wanted it to go. Very heavy. Two sides of it? No, I'm not picking that up at all. This is a city gate. It's going to be bigger than my gate. I promise you that. And it has a bar that comes down. You've seen that. It's got the holders and they swing the bar down and it makes it to where you can't break through. He just picks the whole thing up. I mean, we're talking about the posts that hold it in the ground and the bar that's across there, picks the whole thing up, hauls it up on the hill and sets it up there. That's a powerful, powerful man. If you don't think the Philistines noticed that, you come on down in the text where we're going to be today. They pick up on it. They understand what he's capable of with the help of God. And we're going to talk about that as we go on. So, 38 miles, Mr. Bob said. I didn't find that one out. Okay, 38 miles. He picked the gate up and moved it. Okay. Mr. Bob says it was about 38 miles from Gaza to Hebron. So that's I wouldn't want to walk 38 steps with it, but he walked a good distance and set it up. And so there we got that. So beginning of verse 4, afterward it happened that he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek whose name was Delilah. Third woman now that he's had paid some attention to. Only one, by the way, so far as I know, mentions anything about God being behind it. And this woman right here is going to finally be his undoing. Everybody will know her name. when we get to that, whose name was Delilah. And the lords of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, entice him and find out where his great strength lies, and by what means we may overpower him, that we may bind him to afflict him, and every one of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver. So they're making a bargain, obviously behind the scenes. Samson doesn't know anything about it. They want to know where his great strength lies. Now, before we go any further with our study today, where does his great strength lie? I think I heard somebody say it. Is that you, Corey, saying that? No? Sorry. Who? Where's it? Hair. See, his hair. Okay, Lynn, you're saying that's wrong. What's the answer? God. Okay, the hair, what we got to remember is he took a Nazirite vow. The Nazirite vow involved his hair, yes. It also involved eating grapes or drinking anything that came out of a grape, right? The strength was from the God to whom he had made the vow, or in this case, the vow was made for him before he was born, and then he carried it on in his lifetime. And we're going to see that in a few moments. I've got an interesting quote from one of the old timers who looked at this passage, and his comment was that it's a mistake to say that Samson's strength was in his hair. Samson's strength was in his oath to God and his commitment to God. And when he violated that oath, and he could have violated it any way. He could have violated it by drinking grape juice. That would have been a violation as well. Any violation of that oath would have been the undoing of Samson. It happens to be that his hair plays a critical role here. That's true. But really behind the hair is God. And that's what we want to observe. I do want to notice this note that comes from Roy Lanier Sr. He wrote it in 1953 in the Teacher's Annual Lesson Commentary. And by the way, this is where one of the big mistakes is. You can modify it. But finally, as happens to all who tamper with temptation, he told her that if his hair should be shaven from his head, it should be he. Eliminate that extra W and move the W down to the next line because it should be would. He would be as weak as other men. Okay, tamper with temptation. From whence does temptation arise? Anybody? Well, look with me to the book of James, please. James chapter 1. James talks about this very matter, not Samson, but he talks about all of us, really, in reference to a temptation. We're going to look at this later in sermon form, but here we go. Verse 13, James 1. Let no one say when he is tempted, I'm tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he himself tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when he's drawn away by his own desires and enticed. Then, when desire is conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. Okay, what was Samson's problem? Well, if I had to guess from the text, he's got a problem with women. That his temptation, his desire is in the area of women, and he's pretty much blinded by it. And if you don't believe that, please explain to me what we're about to cover. He is totally blind to anything that they do to him. I mean, he caught on when his wife cajoled him and wore him down, nagged him, cried for days and days. She wore him down, and he told the answer to the riddle. And of course, guess who found out about it? The Philistines did. So he saw it then, but did he learn his lesson? It doesn't look like it. He's so enamored with women. He's so oriented in his desire toward women that he's blinded by it. His temptation overwhelms him. He lets it take control of him. And you're going to see that in his, or we're going to see that in his life. So Delilah said to Samson, "Please tell me where your great strength lies, and with what you may be bound to afflict you." Now, of course, my first question would have been, what difference does it make to you? That'd been my first question. But it's not Samson's. And Samson said to her, "If they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings, not yet dried, then I shall become weak and be like any other man." Now, whereas I said he doesn't give the answer I would have given, the answer he does give indicates that he's not willing to reveal this at the moment. He's going to keep it to himself. Because you and I know that 7 bowstrings have 0 to do with this. Not one thing. And he knows it, but she doesn't. So here comes the next phase, of the problem. Verse 8 of chapter 16 of Judges. "So the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 fresh bowstrings, not yet dried, and she bound him with them. Now men were lying in wait, staying with her in the room. And she said to him, 'The Philistines are upon you, Samson.' But he broke the bowstrings as a strand of yarn breaks when it touches fire. So the secret of his strength was not known." Well, again, what would be your first reaction? If you're not allowing your desire to take control, what would be your first thought? See, he figured it out with his wife. He knew if you hadn't plowed with my heifer, you wouldn't know the answer. Wasn't that what he said? But in this case, does he seem at all to recognize what's going on here? I mean, first of all, he's told her. Secondly, the Philistines are right there. I mean, how'd they just happen to be there? Wouldn't that be a question that you would ask under these circumstances? Samson doesn't ask that question. So we go ahead, verse 10 of Judges, chapter 16. "Then Delilah said to Samson, 'Look, you've mocked me and told me lies. Now, please tell me what you may be bound with.'" Of course, my counter to her statement would have been, "I told you lies. You took advantage of those lies and tried to get me killed, or at the very least captured." But he doesn't do that. So he said to her, "If they bind me securely with new ropes that have never been used, then I should become weak like any other man." So again, he's not ready to tell why or what is the source of his strength. It's really the Nazirite vow is the source of his strength, but he doesn't tell her that. Therefore Delilah took new ropes and bound him with them and said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." And men were lying in wait, staying in the room, but he broke them off his arms like a thread. This is twice now. Sometimes I'll admit I'm slow on the uptake, okay? But 2 times in a row, it happened identically. What?
I wonder if his own vanity was also getting in the way. In that, maybe, and this is just me thinking, maybe he's thinking, I don't need God anymore. I got this. This strength is mine, and therefore I can use it how I want to.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm reading into that, but I just think it's a possibility.
Okay. All right. Derek is giving us a possibility, and that's where I like to word things when I can't prove it from the text. So I don't mind somebody giving a possibility. He's wondering if Samson by this time has become enamored with his own strength and he's forgotten where it comes from. That he's too proud. And that's a possibility. I mean, that he's very, very proud. He's becoming more and more arrogant as time goes on. That's a possibility. The text doesn't tell us that, but he does ultimately learn what the source of his strength is. So maybe that's the answer, and I'll just leave it at that. Maybe. So verse 13, Delilah said to Samson, "Until now you've mocked me and told me lies. Tell me what you may be bound with." And he said to her, "If you weave the 7 locks of my head into the web of the loom." So she wove it tightly with the batten of the loom and said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." But he awoke from his sleep, pulled out the batten and the web from the loom. 3 times, straight in a row. Exactly what she tells him is exactly what happens to him. 3 times, she's pushing him by, "You're lying to me. I'd have been pushing her." So what do you mean? I'm lying to you. Every time I tell you something, I end up in the same spot. You know, whatever I say, that's what I end up with. So, but that doesn't happen. So again, how out of control is his desire? I'd say it's pretty far out of control. And maybe his ego as well. All right, verse 15. Then she said to him, "How can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? You have mocked me these 3 times and have not told me where your great strength lies." And it came to pass when she pestered him daily with her words and pressed him so that his soul was vexed to death. Does this sound familiar? If you just drop back to his wife, isn't that the same technique that she used? That she kept pressing him, crying and nagging on him until he finally let her know? You'd think Samson would say, I feel like I've seen this movie before, so to speak. But he doesn't do that. So verse 17, Judges 16, then he told her all his heart and said, "No razor has ever come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite." Now watch this, Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If I am shaven, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man. Whether he recognizes it fully or not, he just told the source of his strength, didn't he? The source of his strength is God. It's a Nazarite vow to God. And the key there is God, not Samson. Nor is it his hair, except as that pertains to his vow. That's the only way that works. When Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, she sent and called for the lords of the Philistines, saying, "Come up at once more, for he's told me all his heart." So the lords of the Philistines came up to her and brought the money in their hand. She's convinced, and apparently has convinced them, that now she's got him. He's told her everything. Then she lulled him to sleep on her knees and called for a man and had him shave off the 7 locks of his head. Then she began to torment him, and his strength left him. She said, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." So he woke from his sleep and said, "I will go out as before at other times and shake myself free." Now, again, text does not say it, but notice twice here, what's his emphasis? I and what? Myself. No mention of, God will deliver me. That's not in the text, is it? No mention at all. So maybe he is over enamored with his own strength. His ego's too big. But he did not know that the Lord had departed from him. So now we know for sure what's the reason Samson's always been able to win. The Lord was with him. That's what we know. Whether he knows it yet or not, I don't know. He will find out. Then the Philistines took him and put out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza, and they bound him with bronze fetters, and he became a grinder in the prison. A couple of things. First of all, how much do they fear his power? Well, they bind him with bronze fetters. I doubt this is normal. I have no reason to believe it is. However, I'll tell you what. One thing that is normal: blinding him. That's pretty common. If you watch the king as the Babylonians come in to take the children of Israel, what do they do to him? They make him watch. They kill all of his leading men, princes, and so forth. They kill his sons in front of his eyes, and they put his eyes out. So the last image in his mind is the death of all those people that were special to him, especially his family. So this is very, very common to blind someone. But the fetters, bronze fetters, I don't think are normal. Nothing I have discovered would suggest it's normal. I'm not saying it never was used, but it would be pretty rare. So they respected the power that this man had, and they took him to Gaza, and what did they do? He became a grinder in the prison. Who normally did the grinding? Well, it's not really who. It's an animal. It's an ox. And Miss Mitzi said that. I saw her lips move there. It's an ox that normally would do this job. So he's gone from being the strongest man in the world to being an animal, effectively. I mean, that's the way they're treating him. He's like an animal. But watch this. However, the hair of his head began to grow again after it had been shaven. You might say that the Philistines weren't too quick on the uptake either, because they just leave his hair alone, and Samson's got an opportunity to restore his relationship with God because the hair is growing again. And we don't want to over-focus on the hair. We want to focus on how Samson gets God back in his corner as we go on. Now the lords of the Philistines gathered together to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, and rejoice. And they said, "Our God has delivered into our hands Samson, our enemy." Okay. If you know anything about Dagon, you're going to see it in future references. Dagon is their god, as indicated here. It's just an image. That's all it is. And yet it's very interesting. I put a note in here in reference to Dagon. It's from Roy Lanier, and he says Dagon was their national god. The word Dagon means fish, and their god had the body of a fish, but the head, breast, and hands of a human being. Well, in a later story that we're going to see one of these days, you may remember that the Philistines bring in the Ark of the Covenant, and they place it in the temple of Dagon, and when they do, the image of Dagon falls flat on his face, and of course he can't do anything about it. It's just an image. That's all it is. They put it back up. I don't know if they thought it was a fluke accident or what. But the next night, the image falls and its hands break on the threshold, just bust off. And from that day forward, they won't step on the threshold. Kind of like little children won't step on a crack in the sidewalk, that kind of. Well, they won't step on the threshold. Why? Because Dagon's hands were broken off by the threshold. So they're pretty superstitious people, when you think about it. But Dagon's their god. Why are they having this celebration? Because they're giving credit to Dagon, their god, their false god, for delivering Samson into their hands. Truth is, Samson basically delivered himself for a couple of reasons. One, he told his own secret. Number two, he broke his relationship with God. So you put those two together, that's the real thing. But by worshiping Dagon as the source of their victory, what are they doing to God Almighty? Aren't they kind of slapping him in the face? You know, this image can do what you can't do. And there's a secondary thing I want to consider, and that is that Samson has brought shame on the name of God. By what he has done, he's caused the Philistines to think their God is better than the God of heaven. That's bad. And we want to be careful not to do anything that causes God to be thought less of. So, verse 24 of Judges 16, when the people saw him, they praised their God. And they said, our God has delivered into our hands our enemy, the destroyer of our land, and the one who multiplied our dead. So it happened, when their hearts were merry, that they said, call for Samson, that he may perform for us. So they called for Samson from the prison, and he performed for them. They stationed him between the pillars. Now remember, he's blind, okay? So what happens next? Then Samson said to the lad who held him by the hand, let me feel the pillars which support the temple so that I can lean on them. Samson didn't lie to him, but he's going to do some more leaning, let me promise you. Now the temple was full of men and women. All the lords of the Philistines were there, about 3,000 men and women on the roof, watching while Samson performed. Now, please notice, we don't know how many are in the building. All we know is how many are on the roof. 3,000 are on the roof watching. Wonder how many are inside. I don't get a number here. Maybe this is the total, but my inclination think it probably isn't the total. So there he is with this great temple and all these people worshiping this false god. Now watch verse 28, because I believe this is what really turns everything right here for Samson. Then Samson called to the Lord, saying, O Lord God, remember me, I pray. Strengthen me, I pray, just this once, O God, that I may with one blow take vengeance on the Philistines for my eyes. Okay, 2 prayers. Okay, I got 16:28. What was the first one? Oh, chapter 15, verse 18, he prayed. Okay. Oh yeah, he cried to God because he wanted water. He wanted to drink. Pretty selfish, that prayer. But this one's not, is it? Totally different. Thank you. I should have noticed that. Yes, he prayed to God twice. Once self-centered, the other time, not so much so. He does say, I want vengeance for my eyes, but there's going to be a lot more come out of it than just that. And Samson took hold of the 2 middle pillars which supported the temple, and he braced himself against them, one on his right and the other on his left. You can almost imagine this big tackle in football that's going forward, and he's taking the 2 guys out of the offensive line, of the defensive line, so that his running back can go through. That's kind of what you see. But he's doing this to the pillars that support this building. Then Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. Now that may also be a prayer. Might be the third prayer that in this book, this section. But at any rate, and he pushed with all his might, and the temple fell on the lords and all the people who were in it. So the dead that he killed at his death were more than he killed in his life. And that's where I make my second mistake. If you're following my notes, I put L-I-V-E. It should be L-I-F-E. But anyway. And his brothers and all his father's household came down and took him and brought him up and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of his father Manoah. And he judged Israel 20 years. Okay, I'm not sure whether he actually had physical brothers, but the word brother can be used of the people of his tribe. And you say, well, it associates with his father. Yes, his father was the same tribe. So I don't know. He may have had physical brothers. He may not have. No way to answer that. We've already dealt with this next comment from R.L. Whiteside, 1938. He's the one that said, people read into the Bible things that are not in it, such as saying that Samson's strength was in his hair, whereas Jehovah was his strength. When they shaved his head, his vow was broken, and then Jehovah departed from him. Drinking wine would have done the same thing. What I want to do is show this concept of reliance upon God. Let's look at Psalm 18, just briefly. Psalm 18, because it'll remind us of what Samson should have known in the beginning. Begin at verse 1. I will love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my strength, in whom I will trust, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from my enemies. By the way, I think we have a song in our folders that uses those exact words. So skip on down now, same chapter. But we want to look at verse 18. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my support. He also brought me out into a broad place. He delivered me because he delighted in me. The Lord rewarded me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands. He has recompensed me, for I've kept the ways of the Lord and have not acted wickedly, not wickedly departed from my God. So I don't think this psalm was written by Samson, but it describes him pretty well, doesn't it? When he returns to God, he becomes righteous again. When he acknowledges his reliance upon God, there's a certain amount of righteousness there, and because of that, God delivers him. By the way, some of this is my way of figuring out why is Samson mentioned Hebrews 11? Because he's a man of faith in Hebrews 11. How does he get there? And my suggestion would be what we're talking about now. Now, one more. Turn to Psalm 68, if you would. Psalm 68, because we're going to see again this same type of thinking. Look at verses 1 and 2. Let God arise, let his enemies be scattered, let those who hate him flee before him. As smoke is driven away, so drive them away. As wax melts before the fire, so let the wicked perish at the presence of God. Beautiful imagery, and maybe something we ought to hang on to. We may in our lifetime, we may not see God deal with the wicked. But let me promise you that the singer of Israel says it correctly. He will deal with the wicked. It may not happen today, it may not happen in your lifetime or my lifetime, but it will happen. One day, he'll deal with the wicked. Skip on down, same chapter. Now look at verses 34 and 35 of Psalm 68. Ascribe strength to God. His excellence is over Israel, and his strength is in the clouds. O God, you are more awesome than your holy places. The God of Israel is he who gives strength and power to his people. Blessed be God. Where did Samson finally get his strength? Where did he finally realize it came from? It came from God. He may have attributed it to the Nazarite vow without really giving God enough credit. I don't know. But he finally realized that was the source of his strength. There are a few lessons that I want us to learn from the life of Samson, and I've listed them on the last slide there. All three of these lessons come from Roy Lanier, and here's what he said. Those who are called of God and qualified to serve him should feel the responsibility of living like God. In the person of Jesus, God has shown us how to live. Think about 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 21, when it talks about follow his steps. Think about 1 Corinthians chapter 11, where the Apostle Paul says, be you followers of me, even as I also am of Christ. When you and I are out in public, we represent God. And I can say firsthand that sometimes, even like just a few days ago, I think I'm doing the right thing, but maybe I'm not projecting the right attitude or the right depiction of God, of what God would want me to be. And it makes me feel bad when I do that. I don't know how you feel about it when you do it. But all of us need to remember what Brother Lanier is saying here. Wherever I go, I represent God. And I need to remember that. Maybe that would calm me down sometimes when I need to be calmed. All right, then he goes on. Second point, great endowments, whether physical or mental, bring great responsibilities with them. Samson had a great physical endowment. He should have used it constantly and wisely for the accomplishment of God's purpose. What do you and I have? Because whatever it is, God gave it to us, right? I know that there's some people in this very room that are very, very, very intelligent. You got degrees way beyond what I have. At least one in here has a PhD. By the way, that stands for piled higher and deeper. But at any rate, PhDs and so forth. Doctors of I don't know what they do. Pharmacy or whatnot, I don't know what they call that, to be honest about it. But I know that they've got way more education than I do. They're very intelligent. Where did it come from? Where did their intelligence come from? It came from God. So, if you're able to work things with your hands, and there's some of you in here that can do that, just particularly adept at working with your hands. Well, where'd you get that from? God gave it to you. And we could keep going, couldn't we? Some of you in this audience are very, very good at knowing how to handle people. You have to. You deal with lots of folks every day, and they're all different personalities that you have to deal with. Where did your ability to do that come from? It came from God. And we need to remember that. God may have blessed some in here with the ability to make a lot of money. I do not know anybody's bank account situation, not anybody's. Sometimes I'm not even sure about my own, but I'm sure don't know about yours. But where did all the money come from? If you look at Romans chapter 12, it's pretty clear that God blesses us. And what he says is he gives us a lot of money to be able to give. Isn't that interesting? That's in Romans 12. So the point is, use what you have for God. Third point, in Samson, we learn again that we reap what we sow. And that's, of course, a reference to Galatians chapter 6, verses 7 and 8, where he says, be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to the flesh shall the flesh reap corruption, and he that soweth to the Spirit shall the Spirit reap life everlasting. Samson made his mistakes, and he did reap as he'd sown. But ultimately, God blessed him, and he used him to defeat the enemies of his people. And I think that's the reason he's in the Hall of Faith, is because ultimately he came back to God and he accomplished great things. Next week, be prepared to do 3 chapters in Judges. That'd be 17, 18, 19. We won't do all of that, but anyway, if you read that, you'll be ready one way or the other.